What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Marketing Monday. My name is Brandon Ball and I own and operate Perpetual Motion. So every Monday on this channel, I come on here and I give tips and tricks and hints and things that are going on in the marketing world that you should be aware of. So as I'm sure the reason you clicked on this video was because today we're going to talk about supply and demand. But more than that, we're going to talk about why the supply and demand curve is right and why it's so heavily used, but then also why it's wrong and my personal theory as to why it's wrong. So first of all, in order to kind of understand this, we need to talk about what supply and demand is and give a basic breakdown, maybe a refresher for those of you that haven't taken econ in a few years and understand the basics, but want to see it on a graph. So in order to do that, we are going to grab the whiteboard. This is the first time the whiteboard has made an appearance on this channel. So a little milestone for us today. But the law of demand says that there is an inverse relationship between price, which is this axis, and quantity demanded. So the amount that consumers demand, which means this is going to be a downward sloping curve because as price decreases, consumers want more of it. So excuse the little wobble there. So anyway, as price decreases, the demand, the number that people want increase. And this, the theory says that this goes on and on and on and on and on, and eventually, we'll run until the price gets to zero. So that's the demand curve. Now the supply curve is the opposite. It says that there's a direct relationship between price and the number produced. So this is going to be, how many units, in this particular case, we're talking consulting hours or services or whatever your product is. Maybe you're producing expo markers. As the price increases, you want to increase more. You want to produce more because that means more profit for you. So if the price is at $10, we might produce one, but that will slowly go up into an upward sloping, right? So that's kind of the idea there between the supply and demand curve. Now this is not to scale by any means. I just kind of randomly threw these numbers up here for this purpose. But this is a great way to check with your market and check with your industry where your prices should be. If you're thinking about starting a business, or if you started one and you're just not getting the traction, maybe it's because your prices are wrong. So do this, look at the prices, plot some points, figure out exactly if at $200, how many sessions you're going to do and plot that point. At $100, how many sessions are you going to do and plot that point, right? And that gives you an idea of how much that curve actually curves. For our purpose today, I just kind of did this just freehand. So don't just freehand it, actually put some numbers and actually graph it, put some points on it, and then connect those lines. But that kind of gives you the idea of supply and demand. And then this center point right here where these two meet, this is called equilibrium. Or sometimes they call it the market clearing price. It's where the market clears, it's where supply, you don't have a surplus, you don't have a shortage. It's exactly the same supplied as demanded. In a free market, this will always occur. At some point, if you have a surplus, it will settle itself on its own. If you have a shortage, it will settle itself on its own. Now that is assuming we don't have any government doesn't step in and do something, or there's no taxes or anything like that included. This is in a free market, so we won't get into any of that. That gets very convoluted very quickly. But for the most part, all you need to know, the law of demand, the law of supply, and the equilibrium point. So with that, that's the basic breakdown of supply and demand. However, I think this theory is not wrong, but flawed. Because what it doesn't take into account is human psychology and how people think and how people value the different price points. Now, if at any point this theory, I don't know if this theory exists. Surely I'm not the only one that has come up with this. So I started to research and I couldn't find anything about it. But basically the theory is that as the price decreases, the value decreases, which is an actual, that's a thing. If let's say, and I'll go ahead and tell you, the average price of consulting in my region, business consulting in my region, is about $100. $100 an hour is going to get you an hour with a business consultant like myself. Okay, so this equilibrium price on our chart says 100 or 50, but it's actually, let's pretend that this is 100, right? So let's just delete let's say that this is 100. Okay. So 100 is equilibrium. Now, if I drop my price to, let's say, 25, the theory is that I'll get a whole bunch of people wanting to do my service because let's say I price mine out down here. Well, in reality, human psychology says that as the price decreases to a certain extent, I'm actually not going to purchase that because there's no value there. It's like when you go and buy, let's say an iPhone. iPhones are what? Let's say $1,000 for an iPhone. If iPhone comes out and releases an iPhone for $50, $100, how many people are actually going to buy that iPhone versus the $1,000 iPhone that already exists? If they came out with one that was $800, now this law of demand, I think, works, and where that number is that people start thinking, okay, the value here is no longer worth it. I don't know what that point is, or what that point is called in different industries and different, that's all different. In my industry with consulting, I've pretty well found that point is about $50. If I priced out anything less than $50, people tend to say, okay, well, it's so far below the average price that surely it's not worth it. It's not a good session. He doesn't know what he's talking about, XYZ. So there's a point, let's say right at here, that this law of demand curve actually begins to come back and slope back in, because the human psychology says that once it goes below this price point, I don't want to buy more of it. I actually want to buy less of it. So this decides to slope back in. So this law of demand, I think, doesn't go on forever, even though the supply and demand theory says that it does. I think it hits this point right here and actually slopes back the other direction. So I hope that all makes sense to you guys. I'm more than welcome to answer any questions you may have on that theory, or on any theory for that matter. But that's kind of the basic breakdown of why I think the supply and demand curves and supply and demand graph, chart, whatever you want to call it, is flawed. Like I said, I've not found anyone else's research about that. So if there's anything out there that exists, I'd be more than happy. I would love it actually if you share that with me, because it's something, I always want to be learning, and this is something that I'm definitely interested in understanding. But for our purpose today, I just wanted to share with you guys so you can think about that as you're pricing out your product, as you're running specials for, I hate to be the guy that says it, but Christmas is coming up. So if you're running a special for Christmas, or if you're running a Black Friday special or something like that, you got to think about that as consumers psychologically attach value to price. Even though there may not be a correlation there, in the mind of consumers there is. So we need to be aware of that and make sure that our prices directly reflect the value that they're getting. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. I appreciate you guys watching. If you would, please like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in hearing more Marketing Mondays every single Monday. And then with that, I will see you guys next week.